Call the meeting to order. If you could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. All right, welcome everyone. If I could have a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. Next, can I have a motion to approve Board of Education meeting minutes for September 17th, 2020?
Move.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. Next, we have a motion to approve Board of Education meeting minutes for the September 29th, 2020 tax rate hearing.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Abstain.
And we have an abstention. All right, next is 5.01, Patron Comments. So before we start, I'm going to read this little portion about Patron Comments. During Patron Comments, citizens may address the Board of Education concerning issues related to the school district. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. If multiple citizens are speaking to the same topic, they may combine their comments and the board will extend their time to 5 minutes. And I just want to note that we have not done that. We are listening to everyone's Patron comments. Please know that at the board's discretion, the board or superintendent may respond immediately to an issue raised during Patron comments for clarification. However, our general practice is to respond to the comment at a later time via a phone call or written message if a response is needed. So we have a podium there with microphones ready, so both the board and the audience may hear the Patron comments clearly. Board meeting proceedings are also recorded and posted on Rockwood's YouTube channel. So this evening we do have 6 Patron comments, including we also have 2 that are written that are attached to board docs for this board meeting. So for your convenience, do we have a clock ready to go? Okay. So the first one, and I should have brought my glasses. Robert Holtgreen. All right, you're first up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would just like to reiterate that there's a great importance to have a designated virtual teacher for students that are still staying at home and not risking the virus. I'd also like to know what the metrics are for calling this return, because it seems like the metrics that are listed on the website we are not meeting, and I want to know why we would go ahead and return the kids to school when we're not meeting what we're saying we need to meet. And I'd also like to know when that threshold will be reached when the kids are sent back home, and when are we going to make that call, say, you know what, enough's enough, let's take them back. That's all my question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next is Jackie Weiss.
And my name is Jackie Weiss. I also want to talk about virtual learning. I'm the parent of a 2nd grader at Babler Elementary. We came to Rockwood last year, and we moved here because of the schools. So we've only really been here a year. I know it's been really difficult. We've been really impressed with how it's gone. Until a few weeks ago, we were really alarmed. It seemed like there was a very carefully communicated plan. And while it was haphazard, a little chaotic at first, we were doing really well by mid-September. But we felt that the plan was far too rushed. We weren't comfortable exposing our child, exposing our household. I don't actually like being here, quite frankly, in this room. Again, virtual learning was challenging, but we were doing okay. When we decided to stay virtual, we were promised an equitable experience. And I didn't really imagine that the school would decide that the best course of action was to put my second grader in a Zoom with 3 kids when there were other 15 kids in the room. There's 5 classes of second graders at Babbler, and there are 27 kids, and they're all dispersed into 5 different classrooms into little isolated pods. We got tons of mixed messages about specials. At first they were going to be scheduled, and then they were going to happen at different times, and different teachers were telling all the parents different things. And then eventually we got the message that they would all be asynchronous and we would have no meetings whatsoever. So at this point, our second grader, who really thrives on adult attention, is just miserable. She gets maybe an hour a week with Zooms with her teacher in her class, and a lot of it is just watching her class have fun. And she likes the attention from teachers. She's really adult. She thrives on interaction with adults, and she can't really get any attention. So we've been led to understand that maybe there will be change. I honestly got my hopes up today, but we've had a lot of promises kind of retracted over this past several weeks, and so it's getting, we're quite wary. What we need really is a plan for equitable education for our virtual students, so that my kid isn't, basically being tortured. So we really need a dedicated virtual teacher to all these virtual students, so they're not, they can continue to be safe and not have to go through this emotional upheaval in addition to, we were actually doing pretty well before that. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Matt Wind.
Hello, my name is Matt Wind, and I'm here today as both an alumnus of the Rockwood school system and a parent to both a current and future Babbler Bulldog. I'd first like to register my gratitude to the school board for making the difficult decision to shut schools down in the spring. I'm also extremely thankful for the teachers and the staff that created a functional learning from home system this fall. It was a monumental task, and there's a lot to be proud of. When I heard Rockwood had a plan to reopen schools, I was both excited and apprehensive. Excited for the parents who were desperate for relief, and for students starving for interaction. My apprehension revolved around Rockwood not having a clear plan, method of implementation, or risk assessment. As we were not satisfied with the proposed safety measures put forth by the district, we reluctantly chose the least bad option for us and continued home learning. We were told the students learning from home would continue to receive the highest quality education Rockwood is known for and I grew up with. My daughter expected little change moving forward, and unfortunately that's not what she experienced. Drastic cuts and complete eliminations of most of her specials, significant reduction in student-teacher interaction. The chance to watch but not interact with her classmates was more like torture than a learning opportunity. I don't blame her teacher. She's being asked to teach 2 classes simultaneously while balancing new safety procedures and their own safety. I'm not here to blame anyone. However, you need to do right by these kids. Some of them are immunocompromised and should not be forced to choose between quality education and their health. Some of them have family members who are diabetic and should not be forced to choose between quality education and the health of those they hold dear. I have been told conflicting things about a dedicated virtual teacher and the return of specials that are so vital to a quality education. I expect action and demand results, as this is the only acceptable way forward. If the from-home education quality is sufficient, you have a system that is flexible when an outbreak occurs. If the from-home education quality remains poor, the most vulnerable students and families will be forced to return to the classroom. This will increase interactions, reduce social distancing, hasten an outbreak, and put those more vulnerable in harm's way. The district is playing with fire by opening. Don't fan the flames by forcing the vulnerable back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Carlene Murray. I'm just trying to see if we can turn that volume up a little bit, because I know people are talking through mask, which we obviously
Loud voice.
appreciate. So if we can just turn that volume up a little bit, that'd be great. Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, well, good thing I have a loud voice. Well, and you turned it up.
Thank
Okay,
you.
first of all, I want to say thank you. You guys have my full respect because I understand how difficult this situation is and making decisions for such a large area in such a challenging time. I fully respect everything that you guys are going through. So now, what I'm here to say basically is that there have been several people mention, you know, hey, if you're concerned about COVID, stay home. You know, don't penalize us, you know, stay home. We're trying to now, you know, that's the thing. We are, and we're asking, the only thing that we're asking is that our children not be penalized because we are careful to protect our family's health and safety. Unfortunately, you know, it feels as though we are being penalized, or our kids are being penalized due to the lack of interaction with their teachers and whatnot. In a press conference regarding sports, Dr. Miles states, "We have a job to do as well, and that is to provide extraordinary opportunities for our students in academics, arts, and athletics." And that is exactly what we're trying to do, okay? So that brings me to our arts. Violin, orchestra, for third graders specifically. My third grader, she's not going to be able to do orchestra or violin because there aren't enough violins in order to meet the needs of all the virtual students in the Rockwood School District. I understand that. But what I don't understand then is Dr. Miles paying for renting sports fields outside of St. Louis County at the expense of our children. Did that come out of the sports budget? I don't know. But if he's going to do that, you would think that it would only be fair for him or for additional violins to be purchased to meet the needs of the arts portion of our children, our children's education. Another thing is, if that's not an option to purchase additional violins, perhaps give the parents the option to rent violins, you know, so that their kids don't miss out on the orchestra portion. That would be another one there. So, let's see. Oh, live teacher interactions. That's another thing. So they're not setting a minimum requirement for our teachers, or not kind of giving them that guidance that they need. Kind of leaves inequalities in different areas of Rockwood. One school may get a virtual teacher and have several hours of virtual interaction with their teacher a day. Another one gets 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon. So a little more guidance for our teachers and a little more assistance for our teachers would be appreciated as well. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next is Wasim.
Everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. Recently, Rockwood decided to open the school at full capacity while the disease is still spreading in the community. The social distancing measures that's done in the school will be inefficient. We know now the disease is airborne by the CDC guidelines. We know that class will be full of students. It's poorly ventilated because it's closed. So we'll have outbreaks. Kids will bring the disease back to their families. And this is where we expected from Rockwood to strengthen the online and virtual learning, not to go the other way around. Rockwood, instead of strengthening the online learning, they give priority for the in-person. They canceled special for the students. They don't get musics. They don't get arts. My daughter, who's a second grader now, she gets, I would say, minutes of interaction with her teachers, and she's done by 9:30 in the morning. Well, that all doesn't sound right. The kids are left alone while they're still dependent on their teachers and their parents to learn. There's a sense of discrimination against those who chose to do the right thing for their families and for their community. There's a feeling that the learning opportunity provided by Rockwood is not equal, and it depends on what decision you make. Eventually, there will be a huge learning gap between those who chose virtual learning versus in-person learning, and doesn't look to be fair. Now, I feel that Rockwood turned its back to the community. They did not do the right decision in regards to how to provide learning to their kids. And I'm still a believer that the best school for the kids are the neighborhood school. And I believe that Rockwood is a superior district. And this is where we're turning to you guys to keep my beliefs where it is and do the right thing by providing equal opportunity for those who choose the virtual learning. Thank you very much.
Eric Pratt.
Good evening. First of all, I have to say thank you for everything you guys have done. I know this has not been an easy task, and I have not been one of the people at the beginning of this that was easy on you all, but after talking to you all, I appreciate everything that you have done. I do have a second grader. I do have a first grader in school. I tell you what, unlike, I guess I'm the anomaly here. My son is doing excellent at school. His grades are doing well. His personality is really kind of came out. The smile is back on his face. He gets to see his friends again. He loves it. My fifth grader is looking forward to next Wednesday. Like, she literally is every day, hey, when is the next one? So my fifth grader is looking forward to next Wednesday. We still have the 6 through 12. I've heard Parkway is actually starting up their children K through 12, I believe. Don't quote me on that one. But they are starting as in the second quarter. What I fear is going to happen for the 6 through 12 is the situation that we have with the quarter system. I think it's basically, it seemed like a great idea at the time. I think it's basically a failure because some of your older students that are taking AP classes and everything that were A students, B students are now D students right now because it's basically jammed so much, basically 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. So if we can figure out how to get our students back, 6 through 10, back into the schools, and don't get me wrong, there are going to be people like we hear tonight that are going to choose to keep their kids at home, and they have every right to do that. But as for people like me that don't have the ability to teach their kids or their kids need to be in that school session, we ask that you consider getting them into the classroom as soon as possible. Parkway, who is the second largest in the county, is bringing them back in second quarter, so that's something to look forward. You also have the Francis Howell School District and the St. Charles School Districts, who's given you a good idea over almost a month now of how they're doing this 5 days a week, bringing their kids K through 12 in. So I obviously know you all are watching other things. You're looking at all the things Dr. Miles and the staff are talking about. Look at some of those other school districts, large school districts that are somewhat comparable to us. And last thing I got to say is, if you want a lot of this to change in the county, vote for Paul Berry on the 3rd.
All right, next up will be Kuldeep Josh. Welcome. Liam. Sir, you need to keep your mask on when you're speaking.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Kuldeep Joshi. I have 2 kids. One kid is in 2nd grade. She goes to Greenpine Elementary School. And the other kid is 8th grader. She goes to Wildwood Middle School. And I just wanted to share our experiences. So we opted for the online school for our 2nd grader. And the experience we wanted to share is that the level of engagement that we were seeing before, that has gone down significantly between the teacher and the student, and just among the students itself. And that was a cause of concern for us, and that's where kind of we wanted to come and share our opinion and kind of see what are the options that we can take within this school district to kind of improve the engagement between the student and teacher and among other students as well. So there were just a couple of options that kind of we thought about, and one is that can we have a dedicated online teacher for group of students who want to pursue the online learning? So that's one option. And the other option could be, can we better equip the classroom teacher so that they can have more better engagement with the students? So those were the two options, and kind of I wanted to come and share my opinion on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Nandini Sharma.
Good evening.
Evening.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak today. I respect everybody's decision, that was taken, that they made for their child. I know every parent does what's best for their child, and there's no right or wrong, option that we chose. As per the Rockwood website, which talks, where it says Rockwood at Home features, classroom teachers will work in collaboration with their grade teachers, with their grade level colleagues. But each teacher, at our school is doing, what's best fit for them. They are limited with their resources too. I'm not blaming them, but my child who's in first grade gets 10 minutes, and then another 12 to 15 minutes each day for her virtual learning. And then I also have a sixth grader, so I know this is coming for him. So I don't know, what to do about that. She doesn't have any specials. It's like there's something on the website that she has to go to and do it. So she basically gets less than half an hour each day with the teachers, or seeing her friends. So they are missing out on that one. I was thinking virtual learning was an option and not a punishment. Should I contact the rapid response team or the school management to get more attention to all of these above issues and concerns? Thank you. That's it.
Katine?
Hello. This is Hitin, and I have two kids who both go to Green Pines Elementary, and one of them is in first grade, another one is in third grade. So we opted for at-home learning when all this started, and then we thought when you have a at-home learning option, that's going to be fair to both people who stay at home or people who go to school. What my experience so far with my first grader is, ever since kids started going back to school, I think he is the only one, or maybe another one or two kids in his class who are at home. And it's not fair to teacher, I would say, because the same teacher has to also worry about the people in the school as well as the remote learners. So I don't think they can do both jobs at the same time. So I would highly encourage if they can have a dedicated online learning session for all the other kids who are at home. And they just announced today for my third grader that they are going to have it. So I'm just trying to figure out why can't they do it for all grades? Why are they being picky about certain grades? I think to be fair to them, there is possibility that there are not too many at-home learners in the lower grades. But this is tough time. Everybody is trying to think something out of the box. So why can't we do something out of the box and maybe combine two schools into one? And if there are not enough enrollments for at home in one school, can they combine with somebody else and then have enough enrollment and do something creative? These are, as I said, these are tough times. Everybody are making tough decisions. And I feel like we can be a little more creative over here and give a fair opportunity to both in school and at home learners. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Kieran.
Thank you, first of all, actually, for giving me the opportunity to come and talk to all of you. My situation is similar to what Hiten just mentioned. Like, my kid is in the 2nd grade. We chose our kid to be in the virtual class. One of the things that we noticed, on the first day when she had this in class and virtual, we noticed that, the teacher kind of struggled with the education part, where she was actually struggling with, moving the laptop, around to show the kids. I think it's not fair on teachers to have, have both in-person and virtual together. So my suggestion to the board is, if it is possible, to have all virtual learners to be in one class. So that's my suggestion. If it's as Hitan was mentioning, if it is possible, if there are not enough students in one school, is it possible to even pool among schools to have one virtual teacher for the class? So that's my ask. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have superintendent board comments, and we're lucky tonight. We're going to have Dr. Katie Rebele fill in for Dr. Mark Miles, who is at his son is getting married this weekend. So welcome, Dr. Rebele.
All right, well, thank you. Wow, that is loud. That's very loud. I'm a loud talker too. So as you probably noticed or just heard, I am not Dr. Miles. I am the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Katie Rebele, and I'll be filling in for Dr. Miles this evening during Superintendent Comments as he and his family celebrate his son Leighton getting married this weekend. So congratulations to Dr. Miles and his family. Now on to this edition of Assistant Superintendent Comments. Now that our early childhood, kindergarten through 2nd grade students have successfully transitioned back to school buildings for in-person classes, we are excited to begin welcoming our grades 3 through 5th back to the classroom starting Wednesday, October 14th. We will continue to offer Rockwood at-home learning for families who wish to continue their education virtually. For families who wish to take part of Rockwood at-school learning, we have extensive safety protocols and mitigation efforts in our classrooms, cafeterias, buses, schools in place to keep our students and families and staff safe and healthy. With a plan in place to return all elementary grade levels for in-person learning, our district rapid response teams have turned their attention to planning for the eventual return of our middle and high school students. We want to thank all of our extraordinary teachers, principals, and staff for devoting their time and energy to making it safe for our children to return to their education. In advance of our students returning to the classroom, the Rockwood Facilities Department has implemented enhanced cleaning and disinfecting procedures. These include nightly disinfecting of all daily occupied spaces in Rockwood buildings, daily disinfecting of playgrounds, improvements to our HVAC system to increase the flow of outside air into our buildings and help with ventilation. These processes were established for Adventure Club programs over the summer and proved to be very successful. Rockwood's nurses have a kind and caring message for the school community. We are here for you. Nurses around the district have been preparing since March for the return of students, keeping up with the latest COVID information, and planning for ways in which they can care for students who fall ill at school while still playing all of the roles they do during a normal school year. Our nurses have worked with building and district administrators to conceive of new procedures, equipment, and other logistics necessary to best care for our students and families and staff. You can learn more about their efforts at the Rockwood website, which is rsd.org/safetogether/health. This year is the 21st straight year that Rockwood was recognized as the Meritorious Budget Award for Excellence in Budget Presentation by the Association of School Business Officials International. The MBA recognizes best budget presentation practices in school districts and is awarded to organizations that meet or exceed ASBO requirements after reviewed by a panel of school financial professionals. We would like to congratulate Chief Financial Officer Paul Northington, Director of Finance Dan Steinberge, and their team for earning this prestigious award.
Guys,
Yeah,
good job.
congratulations. And finally, on Wednesday, September 30th, it was a big day for us in the Rockwood School District. We welcome back 3,000 kindergarten through 2nd grade students for in-person learning. along with 430 early childhood students. The smiles and happy faces on our students, families, and staff members were awesome. Take a look at some scenes from that day.
Dr. Rebele. Did a nice job. I'm going to tell Dr. Miles that too. All right, any board comments? Okay, very well. Moving on, a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
Move.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, we have one donation tonight. Stanton PTO monetary, $9,115 to supplement various student and staff activities throughout the year. Leader and Me fees, staff holiday and staff appreciation week gifts, and classroom grants. Thank you very much to Stanton PTO.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Kinder. Any other discussion? All right, so that motion is to approve the consent agenda items as submitted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. All right, on to agenda items. I need a motion to approve the proclamation designated October 12th through the 16th, 2020 as National School Lunch Week.
Move.
Motion and a second, and I believe Lynn Midget, Director Midget, is going to read the proclamation.
Whereas the National School Lunch Program has served our nation admirably for more than 70 years through advanced practice in nutrition education, and whereas the National School Lunch Program is dedicated to the health and well-being of our nation's children, and whereas the National School Lunch Program has been joined through the years by many other excellent child feeding programs, and there is evidence of a continued need for nutrition, education, and awareness of the value of the school national programs. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Education of the Rockwood School District, do hereby proclaim the week of October 12th through 16th, 2020 as National School Lunch Week. And I encourage all residents to become aware and concerned about their children's and their own nutritional habits, in hope to achieving a more healthful citizenry for today and the future. In witness, therefore, I have declared and caused the office seal of the Board of Education of the Rockwood School District to be affixed and signed by Laura Lee.
Much. Carmen Fisher, hello.
Good evening. How are you guys?
Good. Good.
This year's theme for National School Lunch Week is Playing Now, School Lunch, putting the spotlight on the importance of healthy school lunch in the child's life and highlights the nutritious foods available daily in our schools. School lunches offer students fruits, vegetables, whole grains, milk, and meets federal nutrition standards limiting fat, calories, and sodium. National School Lunch Week helps us educate parents and students about all the wonderful benefits of the school lunch program. The federally funded National School Lunch Program has been fueling students for the success for more than 70 years. Last year, Rockwood School Nutrition served over 1,070,000 lunches until we reached spring break. After spring break, through the end of June, we served over 42,000 grab-and-go breakfast and lunch, with approximately 30 of our dedicated child nutrition staff stepping up to help students by preparing these meals. Beginning September 14th, Rockwood Child Nutrition has been able to offer free meals to those in the community ages 1 to 18 years through an extension of the Seamless Summer Options Feeding Program. We are offering free breakfast and lunch to our students in the buildings and to children at 4 grab-and-go locations at Crestview, Rockwood South, Selvage, and LaSalle. Meals are being transported to different areas of the district and to the city for our VIC students. The school child nutrition staff have worked closely with our school social workers to ensure that students are receiving our meals. The menu is the same as it's always been, but now breakfast and lunch are offered at no charge for our students. I can't say enough about how wonderful it is to work with such an outstanding group of people who are flexible and willing to help out wherever they are needed. We have many of our secondary child nutrition staff traveling to the elementary schools to assist with serving breakfast and lunch now that they're back. With over 37 openings in our child nutrition department throughout the district, we're looking for more good folks to help us serve our students breakfast and lunches.
Very good. Any questions?
Carmen, so you have 37 openings. How many spots are there total?
Around 220.
Okay.
So how is everything going? Because it's obviously a crazy time, and how are you doing?
Every day is different. We are shifting people as we need to get the kids fed. So we may have to change the menu on occasion because some of the food distribution channels are a little out of the ordinary. So it's been difficult to plan, but we're making it work. So, but we definitely need some assistance. So we're hiring.
Appreciate it. Well, my mom is 92 and lives in Wisconsin. She used to be a cook. Maybe I can have her come down and fill in.
Absolutely.
All right.
Great.
Thank you. The motion is to approve the proclamation for National School Lunch Week. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. Sorry, she's 91 3/4. Next up, motion to approve the Board of Education proclaim the month of October 2020 as Anti-Bullying Month in the Rockwood School District. And I believe Director Dunn will read this proclamation.
Anti-Bullying Proclamation. Whereas bullying is physical, verbal, sexual, or emotional harm or intimidation intentionally directed at a person or group of people, and whereas bullying occurs in neighborhoods, playgrounds, schools, and through technology such as the internet and cell phones, and whereas various researchers have concluded that bullying is the most common form of violence affecting millions of American children and adolescents annually, and whereas thousands of children and adolescents are affected by bullying annually, and whereas targets of bullying are more likely to acquire physical, emotional, and learning problems, and students who are repeatedly bullied often fear such activities as riding the bus, going to school, and attending community activities, and whereas children who bully are at greater risk of engaging in more serious violent behaviors, and whereas children who witness bullying often feel less secure, more fearful, and intimidated. Now, therefore, be it resolved, we, the Rockwood School District Board of Education, do hereby proclaim the month of October as National Bullying Prevention Month. Signed this 8th day of October, 2020. Signed, Laurel Imondo, President, Rockwood Board of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. And Todd Minicello, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Did we get a motion on that in a second?
We didn't.
We need a motion on
Did?
that.
Move.
Thought I read it. Motion
Second.
to approve. Oh.
So move.
Oh.
Can I do it?
No.
Are you good now, Mrs. Sadowski? All right. Sorry about that.
Bullying prevention is something on which we work extremely hard. It is crucially important that every student in Rockwood feels safe, welcome, and valued in our schools. We are blessed to have a wonderful team of dedicated school counselors, nurses, social workers, teachers, and administrators working daily to keep our schools bully-free. Thank you for the school board's unwavering support in this. We see how important our students' health and safety is to each of you, and this helps fuel our work. Thank you.
Much. Any questions or comments? All right, so that motion was to approve the proclamation for Anti-Bullying Month. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you, Todd. All right, next is 8.03, return to school update. I see Glenn Hancock, Dr. Dave Cobb, Carl Weinrich, Beth Serrata, and Dr. Allison Loy. Go ahead, Glenn. It's all your show.
All right, thank you. This evening I want to give an update with our rapid response teams. These are the teams that have been working to develop a plan to help with the safe reentry for in-person, but then also looking to provide online education as well. Tonight we're going to share a little bit about the secondary entry plans that we've been working towards. We have a few updates to share, but also want to share information just to how K2 and looking ahead to 3-5 coming up here next week is going to be looking. As we look at our logo, our Rockwood Safe Together logo, I do want to take a moment to share the importance of those words, Rockwood Safe Together, that it is going to take all of us working together to continue using that proper hand hygiene, our masks, using social distancing at school and in our lives outside of school as well. Staying home if we have any symptoms, keeping our children home if they have symptoms. This will help stop the spread, help mitigate, part of our mitigation measures going forward. And we had an opportunity to talk to Dr. Newland, who is a doctor with WashU, and was sharing that the best you can reduce that congregation without mitigation, so large group gatherings that aren't using any social distancing or masks, as much as we can reduce that, will help keep our community safer and will help, again, a successful re-entry back into school for our students. So one of the other aspects that we're looking and we're working towards in Rockwood is as we bring students back, we want to keep an updated list of information for our schools that have positive cases and are those in quarantine. So I'm going to invite Carl Weinrich to share a new dashboard that's been created so that we can keep track and monitor those internal indicators as well as our county indicators.
So we created a website a while back, the Safe Together, that we launched about a couple weeks ago. Let's go ahead and pull that up if you don't mind, Bob. One of the new features that we just added to the site today, this afternoon, is the Rockwood Health Indicators. We have had the community health indicators up there that we were looking at. Dr. Miles and the board and the rest of the community was using to monitor the status of the COVID spread in St. Louis County. Now we're bringing that in-house. So what we have here is we have our Rockwood Health Indicators. If we scroll down just a little bit there, you can see that we cover different areas. We have our early childhood and elementary schools. That would be our pre-K through 5. Our middle schools will give you information to our 6 through 8, and of course our high schools 9 through 12. But on top of all that, we're also monitoring the safety and health of our support staff and our administration staff that are in buildings outside of schools. And of course we have our community indicators that we continue to display as well. Let's go ahead and look at that first one, the early childhood and elementary schools. This one here, you will see if you just scroll down a little bit, we have some information. We're going to do it by week. It'll be a Monday through Friday week that we'll be looking at. And basically what we're showing here is new positive cases and quarantine cases for each of the areas. We are breaking it up into 2 categories, the students themselves as well as the staff. What we are actually recording here are absences by students, the ones that are in school, due to these particular cases. So if a child were to miss school on a Monday through Friday because he was positive or she was positive for COVID, they would show up in that first chart as well. Obviously, they're going to miss more than one day if they are positive, so we're only counting them one time for that week. If they are also still continue on staying at home the following week, probably are, we will not recount them. That positive case will only be counted one time, and along with our staff. When it comes to our quarantine cases, just below that a little bit, you'll see that we have obviously some that in the last week we had 27 students and 9 staff members that were quarantined. That particular number, we will count the exact same way, with the exception of we will recount individuals that are still out for quarantine. You'll only be counted, the student or staff member will be counted once for that particular week, but that count starts over the following week. So chances are, if you're going to be out more than 2 weeks, right, if you're quarantining possibly, so you're going to be counted that week and then the following week as well, in most cases. Now, if you scroll back up to the top there, you'll see that we have the middle school and high school at the very top. There you go. The middle school and high school, we do have some numbers up there. Right now, they're currently just for our staff members because our staff members are the only ones in those buildings at this particular time. When we bring students into those areas and those schools, we will go ahead and add the staff data as well. We'll try to get most of that data posted on Monday, at the latest Tuesday. Sometimes it takes a little bit to crunch those numbers right now, but we're working on that process to speed that up. Administrative offices and support staff, again, that's the other staff that are in the other buildings, like this building, the central office building, our maintenance, our custodian staff that are not working in a building itself. Obviously, we only have staff in those buildings, so the same information applies there as well. So we'll continue to monitor that. We'll continue to add to the website, again, weekly. We'll take a snapshot of that. Questions on the health indicators?
There's an article in the paper this week that showed districts in the county and their COVID cases. And it was interesting because Rockwood was by far the biggest with over 500 plus. And I looked at that and said, there's no way we haven't had 500 cases. So it's deceiving. I think it talks about the people in the Rockwood district that have been identified as having COVID. It's over 500, which is the highest in the whole county. But these indicate we've had very few cases actually of COVID identified.
So this data is taken from us directly when our nurses and Amy Ware handles these particular cases along with our nurses in the schools. That's where we get our data from, not the county itself. We get our own data directly.
And I just hope when people read that they don't think we've had 500 cases. We haven't come close to that. Thanks.
Well, what about athletic teams and you know, going backwards to now?
Sure. Going backwards to now, no. Our focus is really the students in the school buildings themselves. We're not tracking COVID cases or quarantines out, the children that decided to be virtual. We're not tracking that. It's only the ones in the building along with our staff. When it comes to athletics and activities, if they are quarantined in a particular team or they picked up COVID at a particular athletic, obviously if they're in the building, they're going to be missing school. So at that time, we will pick them up on this particular chart. Now, for example, high school activities and athletics, we're not tracking it at this point because they're not in our buildings yet.
We are tracking it, we're just not tracking it for this.
Through this, correct.
Right,
yes,
right.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, through the Rockwood Health Indicators, they do not show up on here.
Right.
Our focus here is the students in the buildings. All right, thank you.
Good evening. So I'm here to talk a little bit about the K through 2 return. I brought Dr. Loy and Ms. Sharada with me tonight because I wanted to give the board a perspective from an elementary principal on how it's going. So I will tell you that last Wednesday was a huge day, as you've seen. We welcomed a lot of kids back. We've supported and help those students transition. Next Wednesday will be another big day because we'll have 3 through 5 in. So up here you see our numbers of the balance between in-person and online by grade level. And if you change to the next slide, you'll see the 3 through 5 that I'll talk about in a little bit. But going back to K through 2, so as it relates to kids coming back to our schools, we've been very successful. We have, as we've always stated, that the health and safety of our students is the top priority. So our kids are doing an excellent job. And I know that Beth Sharada, if you come up, because she had a really good a list of the things that she's seen that's been positive in her building. And so I'll let her talk a little bit about that. And then of course, if you guys have questions after this, and we'd be happy to answer those. So if you want to talk about the things that you've seen that are positive.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Beth Strada. I am the principal at Kersmill Elementary, and we have experienced a very successful return of our K through 2 students. It took a lot of planning. There were a lot of nerves, but they were mostly nerves of excitement for our kids to come back. That's why we got into this business anyways, is to be with those kids. So it was a very exciting time last Wednesday to get those K through 2 kiddos back in the building. Some things that have gone really well. Masks are a non-issue for kids. I would say it's more of an issue for us adults than it is for those kiddos. They do a fantastic job keeping those masks on exactly when they are supposed to, and they are great rule followers with that. We have put procedures in place for our hallways. We've put signage up. It's very easy for kids to understand which side of the hallway that they need to walk on to minimize that traffic and to cross-contaminate with different cohorts. So that's been going very well for our K through 2 kiddos. We have incredible teachers who are very passionate about this and taking this very, very seriously. So it took a lot of creative planning on the classroom arrangement to make sure that our kids are able to social distance within the classroom. So they've gotten very creative with that. And when I walk into classroom, kids are practicing social distancing as well as teachers, and they are learning and they are together and they are enjoying that in-person experience. Lunch and recess has also been very successful. At Kersmill specifically, we've been able to have all of our students eat lunch in the cafeteria. They are all facing the same direction, so it adds another safety precaution in that area. And because of our reduced capacity, we're able to spread out in the cafeteria and allow kids to eat in there. Recess has been zoned so that they're only playing with the kids that are in their classroom, and they're not mixing with other classes in order to add another safety measure to that. We have scheduled restroom breaks for our kiddos as well, so that they have those scheduled restroom breaks for their whole class. We have social distance markers in the hallway, so when they're waiting for the restroom, they're still spaced out. Of course, kids are allowed to use the restroom if it's not during their scheduled time, but then we do have those hallway procedures in place so they know where to stand, which way to go, so there's not too much traffic in the hallway. And we've also mastered our arrival and dismissal procedures. That was a trick because a lot of parents are wanting to do that parent pickup piece and not send their kiddos on the bus, but that adds a level of planning for those elementary schools, so we've been able to successfully work through those issues and make sure that parents feel comfortable picking up their kiddos. So those are some things that have really gone well, and we're really excited to welcome back those 3rd through 5th graders next Wednesday.
I'm going to ask Dr. Loy if she could come up and just talk a little bit about the preparation for 3 through 5 as she's met with grade level teams. I was fortunate enough to be there and meet with 2 of her teams. And then I can certainly then talk overall and ask and answer some questions as well. So this is 3 through 5, kind of what you're prepping
Okay,
for.
and Beth did a great job. I was going to say ditto to everything she said. So we met this week with 3rd through 5th, and Dr. Cobb was there for a couple of the discussions, which was helpful. The teachers, what I'm finding, they don't want to give up their kids. Like 4th and 5th ended up doing one dedicated virtual teacher because the numbers justified it, but they really struggled with it because they didn't want to lose the relationships they had already built. And I would say the only negative thing, I've talked to a lot of people, but the only complaint that I've had so far is a parent that was really upset that their kid's placement got changed because of those relationships. And so everything's gone well. Everyone's super excited. They can't wait to get the kids back next week. Much what Beth said, everything's just, the kids, it's almost like they've done this their whole life. Like the masks are a non-issue. And they're already like spaced naturally. Even though we have the spacers in the hallway, I thought that would be a big deal for little kids, but it has been a non-issue, so thanks.
So I think, overall, we've seen tremendous success with our return, and I certainly anticipate the exact same for 3 through 5. I will tell you that being it the COVID season that we're all experiencing, it's not perfect for everybody, and we continue to have to make adjustments. I will tell you that it's not perfect for every parent that chooses online. It's not perfect for every parent that chooses in person. It's not perfect for every teacher that has to make a decision whether they have to keep their kids or go to be a full remote teacher. And so every time we make a change with anything in particular, what we've experienced is if we make a change to have somebody go fully online, what happens is you satisfy, you know, a need here, but then you create other concerns here where you might have parents who enjoy working with their teacher may change, they may be used to their classroom community, they may be used to their classroom and their students there, and so that might change as well. So in my experience in talking to the parents that I've spoken with and been into many of the schools and talking to a lot of our grade levels, what I've experienced is, in my mind, the best way that we can continue to move forward to provide individual needs for every single person is we've got to continue to have conversations and make adaptations to what we're currently doing. We've been in school for 6 days. We bring 3 through 5 back next Wednesday. I truly believe after 3 through 5 comes back, we will have a lot of information about what works well and what we need to change. I will tell you as the executive director of elementary school, we will never sit still and say everything is okay until all parents are heard, their voices heard, and we make adaptations to meet the individual needs of all students. That's difficult to do in COVID because, as we know, there are different opinions of what works well and what needs to happen. What I've said is everybody's right, and we have to listen and honor their voice, and we have to do a better job of doing that. And that goes with our teachers, it goes with our parents and our students. And I will just say that without our quality teachers, you know, you hear about the success behind me from the 2 principals about what's happening. I can echo that because I've been in all 19 buildings. Our teachers are doing an outstanding job. They are really doing an outstanding job. Yes, thank you. They are. And it's our job to continue to support them and find better ways to do this because, as you know, we were not staffed in the spring to handle what we're handling, and we are doing the best we can with the resources we have, and we just have to meet the needs of every individual parent and child, and we'll continue to do that. We will meet again with the rapid response teams, RLC, after 3 through 5 is back. We will evaluate how we're doing, what we need to do. I will continue to meet with grade level teams. I think I've met with 20 to 25 of them in the past 6 days. I'll continue to hear their voice. We'll try to find patterns. We will make the changes necessary to make sure that we're doing the best we possibly can. So just know that we won't sit still to know that everything is okay until we continue to make changes for the better. So it's been successful, but we'll continue to work and improve on the model that we have.
Steve?
Yes, sir.
I do have 2 questions. As you heard tonight, most of the concerns were about the virtual education. And the principals heard it, you heard it, and Shelley heard it. My question is, how are you going to be able to address that, and how are you going to get that worked out?
That's a good question. So right now how we're addressing is that we're listening and we're seeing it in pockets. And so we went with the collective responsibility model where grade level teams could meet together to figure how they would best support their students. And we're seeing a variety of answers to that. Some grade levels have enough for have an online teacher, but they choose to all keep their own kids for a variety of reasons, and they're all right. And so each individual, we have one grade level, for example, that they decided to all keep their kids, and then today they've realized that they need to probably have an online teacher. So they're making changes. I will tell you that the teachers it's almost identical to when we came back the first 2 days. We heard from parents that the first 2 days were rough. Well, when you get out of the teacher's way and you let them do the great work that they do, we're finding better ways to meet needs. And so I think that the biggest thing that we need to continue to work on is how do we support the virtual learners, because not all parents are looking for a full-time virtual teacher. They're perfectly happy in that classroom where they've built that relationship with that teacher. And by moving those people to a virtual, what you've just done is you've upset a community that's already created. And so it's very challenging, to be honest with you, but the best way that I know how to do it is to continue to talk with parents and teachers and problem solve. But that's our biggest issue, is how do we find a way to meet the needs of all of our learners?
Another issue I hadn't even thought about until somebody was talking about it. I'm assuming more and more parents are bringing their kids to school. Well, you've got K through 2 there now. That may be creating a traffic jam, but when you throw 3-5 in there, isn't it going to create a tremendous traffic jam?
I would tell you that there are a number, and I don't have that number, but just in talking with principals and teachers, where K through 2 students are remaining home until 3 through 5 students come back, and then they're coming back together. And so, yes, I had the fortunate opportunity to sit into an hour's worth of traffic at Kerrs Mill Elementary School the first day of school. So the traffic has been quite the opportunity, because we're also encouraging those parents to bring kids. And so we've done arrival and dismissal in ways that we've never done before. But sometimes we have to give up the time piece because safety is the most important, and it might just take longer. So yes, we are seeing an increase of what that looks like.
Thank you.
I want to thank the elementary building principals about your diligence with students and mask wearing. I think, you talk about it comes so naturally to them, and it does, and the different videos and things I've seen, that we can really be proud of our little ones for taking on that and just making it be part of their way they go to school now. Hopefully our older students will take on that same attitude, and we'll be good to go. So thank you to the building principals and the teachers and the planning that you have done to make that happen, as well as all the other health precautions.
Appreciate that, and I think that one big positive was the decision to bring K through 2 back and then wait for 3 through 5 was absolutely the right decision, as we learned a lot on what works well and what we need to tweak and do better. And so I'm very pleased with where we are today and where we're going tomorrow. But I will tell you that it won't be the best until we meet all the needs, and it's just going to take a lot of work to do that, and we're ready for that.
Dave, can I ask you just one quick question about subs? How's that been working out so far with K through 2 when a sub is needed? Have we had enough subs to come in? Have they been trained well enough to jump right in? I'm just curious about that process.
And I know Katie could jump in, but I can tell you just from my lens, I've not heard any issues at all. I mean, fortunate enough, we've been given extra subs in every building, which has been fantastic, and our principals have really use that to our advantage, because what we're really needing in our buildings is the human resource component. Extra bodies help. When you have extra bodies, teachers can figure out better ways to do what we have to do, and so the subs have been tremendous. So I have not heard any issues at all, and we've been very fortunate.
Ditto. We definitely are experiencing new challenges, but new opportunities. So one of the things we decided to do is we've assigned 1 to 2 subs to every elementary school, just to be there every day. Extra set of hands, help, goodness if somebody gets ill. So we haven't had any problem at all. And also the subs really appreciate it because it gives them consistency of where they're going every day. It allows us to not have subs cross schools and, keep that cross-contamination down. And we're committed to that at the secondary level when middle and high schools return also. So we'll just keep evaluating that, and I think that plan is working.
We increased our classroom assistants as well in elementary schools.
We've been in constant conversation about that, because it's the issue with the classroom assistants is we would love to increase it. We've had classroom assistant jobs openings, and like we would see in Adventure Club and some of our other, they're not applying. So we've had an opening out there with 0 applicants. But yes, we're continuing to look and find ways to provide that human resource. And we met just this week again, and we'll continue to meet to find ways. The human resource to give teachers another body to help support what they're doing, I found in my conversations is one of the biggest needs that our teachers have. So we're just creatively trying to figure out how to do that. I do think that something's going to come out of when 3 through 5 comes back. We see that successful transition, and we've learned, and we've heard from teachers, and we've heard from parents. I think we're going to land in a spot where we can see what we can do for our classrooms.
I just want to remind you, every elementary school has 4 classroom assistants dedicated to them. That's a tremendous resource, and we have 1 opening. Chesterfield Elementary, if you're looking for a job, please apply. But otherwise, we have all classroom assistants are filled. That's pretty amazing. And so our principals, with Dave's leadership, which has been outstanding, are really looking at using those classroom assistants differently, using them for more than maybe a different way that we looked in the past, assigning it to a grade level where it can help the teacher with at-home students, so really looking at them differently. But each school has 4 dedicated. That's a pretty awesome commitment by you guys that our schools already have.
As you look down the road, I see things that other districts have done that I don't want us to get into that predicament. For example, Warrington had to close the school down for 3 days or 4 days because they couldn't find subs. So I'm worried about that. So the next thing was Fort Zumwalt North. They quarantined 444 students. That's a lot of students, even though it's a 1,700, 1,800 size school. And even in private schools are hit. Westminster quarantined the whole senior class about the second or third week of school because they all went to a party, like a graduation party, which they haven't graduated yet. And I don't want us to get into those predicaments if we can stay away from that.
And that's a great point. I think that, right now our biggest challenge is that online learner, and how are we solving that? We haven't faced the class quarantine, the major quarantine in the school. And so I would tell you, walking in Utah Valley, for example, I heard 3 times, teachers doing an amazing job of, sweetheart, put your mask back on, or put your mask up. And so it's a constant reminder, and we have to be diligent and not lose sight of what those mitigation strategies are. It's those mitigation strategies that are going to keep us in. And so it has to be on the forefront of our mind in all that we do. We're going to see quarantine cases. With the proper mitigation strategies, those numbers will obviously go down if we do it right.
You did say that we have some teachers that have chosen to teach all of their kids the on-ground and virtual at the same time, and you have some that have chosen to only teach the on-ground and somebody else teaches the virtual. That seems to be the one I think that's struggling the most, because maybe the virtual curriculum, I don't know if it's up to what the rest is, or it's a different curriculum, or what.
Oh, actually, it's a very interesting, it depends on the grade level. A lot of times, teachers will choose to keep their own kids, and one of the reasons why is because if they choose the online, to be an online teacher, it might put more children in the in-person classrooms, and they're looking to keep those class sizes down. So there's a variety of reasons of why they choose what they choose. Some of them don't want to give up those kids because they have a relationship with them. It just depends on what those numbers are. But it's interesting to watch teachers work and brainstorm on how they are solving some of these issues. And like I said, I've met with a lot of grade levels, and they're doing some really unique things. I've got one grade level where they're just splitting it up. One's going to teach virtual math, one's going to teach virtual ELA, one's virtual science and social studies, etc. So when we learn from teachers about what's working well, our hope is that we share that with all of the grade levels so we can find ways to perfect this difficult situation that we're faced with.
Laura Lee and I both are teaching classes at the university. That one class of mine is all virtual, but the other one is a mix. There's 8 on ground and 10 virtual, and we've had success with it. Now realize these are college people, are older, but I don't see that much difference than in the school situation. But it does take a lot of work and a lot of planning. But our teachers are used to that anyhow.
It takes a lot of work and a lot of planning, absolutely.
I have one more follow-up.
Yeah.
So having a second grader gives me that viewpoint from a parent as well, and I'm glad to hear you, first of all, say that you're listening to all of the virtual concerns and addressing all of that and continuing to make improvements, because that's what this is all about, right? Even when we started in August, we saw that happen within the first week of school, and we made some quick changes. What I'm wondering is, when 3 through 5 goes back next week, when you talk about human resources and having enough people, I know I'm driving my daughter, and so from a safety, parking lot, arrival, dismissal standpoint, so far 3 through 5 have gotten really creative, all of our building principals, and some of that comes from just the enthusiasm of teachers wanting to see kids coming in. So it's kind of like all hands on deck, right? Like everybody from this wing is coming out to help safely get kids in and out of the school. And it's awesome to see that. What I'm wondering is next week, when it's 3 through 5 coming back in, do we have any concerns about the safety outside our buildings, getting kids in and out, because we won't have those same number of bodies able to be outside?
It's a great question. I do think there's always concern when you add twice as many kids, right, to the process. But, and you're right, a lot of those buildings, 3, 4, and 5, are coming out to support and help. And I've talked to Dr. Willett, for example. We have, Shelley was like, we can use people in my department, we can use people in her department, because we need to provide the hands on deck so the process can then be worked out and we can do it safely. And so above and beyond the school buildings, I do think we have people in our district that would be absolutely more willing to, I know Katie would love to go out there.
Absolutely.
And so we're going to find those spots, and I have principal meetings Monday and Tuesday, and that's on our agenda to say, do you need help? And if they need help, then we can find those resources, beyond the school building to help support until we find the best way to navigate what that might look like. Because once again, we think we know what we're going to see on Wednesday, but until they come, we don't. And so having extra hands there would be beneficial for sure until they're not needed.
Well, I'm thankful every day that it's a beautiful weather day right now, because it's making a big difference. But like you're saying, when K through 2 first came back, there were far more cars those first few days than, even this week that I'm seeing. And so I'm sure that's what everybody's expecting next week with 3 through 5 at least. So it's good to hear that.
And I would imagine all the principals, and they could probably talk about that's what they're talking about this week, and next week is how we're planning for and anticipating that.
Do you thought about maybe having each grade level go into a separate door in the schools? That way you're kind of not mixing?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are doing that or not, but yeah, we've had some schools where the front entrance was used. Now they're using both ends as well. And so anything that we can do to help prevent a cluster of students together, we're doing those types of things. So yeah, that's absolutely been on the plate for some schools.
Steve?
All right.
Only 37 more slides to go, and then we'll be out of here. As Dr. Cobb mentioned, we are going to continue monitoring. One of the things that we have started is a Rockwood Heartbeat. It's more of a check-in than a survey. It's a short 4-question check-in that we're calling the Rockwood Heartbeat. We began it this week. Here are some preliminary results. Again, very preliminary. We are including it. They're also conducting it as well tomorrow. We'll start one for parents and staff as well. So that way we're able to get quick check-ins to see how things are going from kind of all perspectives. And we can use that information with our schools to share how things are going with not only by grade level, but also for students that are in person and students that are online. So that way we're able to make adjustments, as Dr. Cobb is mentioning, and improvements where we see things. So not only are we getting comments, but we're also using some data from some surveys. We'll also have another survey for 3 through 5. Again, short, quick questions. This is just preliminary data that we're getting as of this morning. And you can see we're having some positive results. Some areas already where we can look, we can disaggregate the data a little bit and start to see, okay, where can we make some improvements at? And again, we can look at this information by school and by grade level and by students that are online and in person. So that's just another way we are monitoring our progress of our in-person transition. As I mentioned earlier, our response teams are moving towards secondary and the plan for secondary. So our response teams are led by our principals and joined by teachers and administrators, other district representatives. We're continuing this process from what we began with our elementary group. We divided into 4 teams: a district and school readiness team, an enforceable health and safety measures team, a student community and staff education well-being team. This is the team, for example, that was responsible for sharing the heartbeats surveys with us. And then a schedules and staffing team that was looking at an instructional model options that we can use for in-person and online learning. Our team members, again, as I mentioned, a variety of team members, of staff members, of teachers, counselors, principals, as well as district personnel. Our team leads are principals and assistant principals from our middle schools and high schools at this time. We followed a very similar process, but we did learn a little bit from our elementary. We varied our process with our team framework a little bit. This time we began with the Rockwood Learning Council, what we call the RLC. This is a group of teachers, principals, counselors, so about over 100 teachers, principals, and counselors at the secondary level, and we started with input from them to devise an initial plan response. We've taken that initial plan response, brought it back to Rockwood Learning Council, and continued to get feedback. We're nearing the point of finalizing our response and being able to place some more information on our Safe Together website, and then eventually we'll be able to put this plan to action and begin monitoring. Very similar, some monitoring plans like we just introduced with the Heartbeat survey a second ago. Currently, we're right here in between using that feedback from the Rockwood Learning Council and developing that final plan. We have a couple of Rockwood Learning Council meetings next week on Monday and Tuesday that we're going to take some of this information from those teams they've used and developed and bring it back to them for some final input. Of the 4 teams, just to give you a quick example of some of the things that's in progress and nearing completion, our district and site readiness team, they're developing a checklist. So those checklists you talk about, traffic patterns that you're asking about, Mr. Dunn, that's in the checklist to ask our principals to kind of look through the buildings, be mindful of traffic patterns, including how we're going to disinfect, our communication and messaging, how we're going to handle lunch procedures, how we're going to handle before and after dismissal procedures. So all those things that we can be mindful of to mitigate, put mitigation measures into place are part of that checklist. Our middle school and high school teams have updated it with middle school and high school specifics. As you can imagine, there's unique needs at the middle school and high school, so they looked at it from the middle school and high school perspective. And they also went a step further and created classroom checklists to help our teachers and support our teachers to be mindful of ways that they can continue the mitigation measures inside their own classroom. We'll be sharing these checklists with our principals and then obviously also with our teachers as well. Our team that was working with the health and safety measures, they're continuing and taking a lot of the work our elementary team started. So we're very thankful for all the work that our elementary group started with. And there's a lot of consistent things that they're going to continue with in terms of monitoring our health. We just saw the introduction of the internal health indicators tonight. Mask and face coverings. We're going to continue the contact tracing, emphasizing our hand hygiene, being mindful of our transportation procedures, and then introducing classroom and cleaning procedures as well. With some of the things that are consistent, there are also some things that are unique to the middle school and high school that they're preparing for. In terms of social distancing, things such as being mindful of lockers. They're not going to be assigned a locker to help, again, maintain some social distancing and the traffic flowing throughout the halls during passing period. Some classroom precautions in terms of maintaining assigned seats, also using some of those assigned seats during lunch to help, again, with contact tracing. There can be cases of positive cases of COVID. However, our goal is to minimize and prevent transmission. We want to keep that transmission as low as possible and minimize the other positive cases that would occur. Transportation, after-school activities, again, reducing what would normally be a full bus, reducing the count of students on the bus. Our community staff and education well-being group, this group is in the process of looking at our communication that's out there, thinking of some other ways we can kind of create some visual organization methods to share, because there's a wealth of information on our website, the Safe Together website, looking how can we organize it, can we create any graphical representations to help share with our community, what's some unique training that our subs are going to need, and again, how do we support for the mental health and social emotional well-being of our students, of our teachers, and even our families. So our elementary group started preparing some information as well as some support measures to help our families, students, and teachers. Our secondary is looking at carrying that on and adding more information to our Safe Together website. And our staffing and scheduling group, this is the group that's looking at how do we continue to best meet the needs of our in-person learners, our at-home learners, and even those that have extended absences due to quarantine in there. As we look at online teaching, our teachers have done a tremendous job of jumping into this all virtual world and working with not only synchronous opportunities, but also creating quality online opportunities that are asynchronous as well. They've had to kind of go back and forth between those modes, and quality education can happen with asynchronous and synchronous formats. And it's important that we continue to develop our online abilities and our online teaching, because as we transition and look at revising the schedule to meet both online and in person, we're having mindful of the scheduling challenges that are before us. While we maintain fiscal responsibility with our decisions, middle school and high school, they have unique staffing and scheduling needs in terms of our middle schools are staffed by teams. Our students are grouped together in teams to meet their academic and social needs, so that's how our staffing and our scheduling is organized. Whereas at the high school level, our schedule is organized to give students the greatest combination of courses possible. We want to make sure we're able to offer students any course that they sign up for or register for, and we began that process back in January and February of this year. And so our biggest priority with that high school schedule is to try and guarantee students their courses. So as we look ahead to planning for coming into school here coming up, it's important that we're mindful of that we have the opportunity that things could look different in second quarter for the virtual versus second semester. We're already in the middle of our schedule for this current semester, or this quarter, which then is really a semester combined with the second quarter, right? And so there's potential that it will look different from second quarter than it would look second semester for our virtual learning. We have a team of teachers that are looking at this. That's this response team that's looking at it. They're developing options of what it would look like in second quarter, and then again in second semester. When you move to second semester, we have a lot more options because we have the full schedule available to us. So a lot more opportunities to manipulate and organize and recreate some things in the second semester. That group will be presenting to our Rockwood Learning Council on Monday and Tuesday evening. So again, our Rockwood Learning Council, made up of teachers, counselors, and administrators, will have an opportunity to weigh in and share some of their thoughts on the options that they are developing inside of there. And as we continue to finalize our plans and publish them, they will be available on our Rockwood Safe Together website for our community as we, again, get set for praying for a successful return in person, and then also providing that quality online learning opportunity as well. Any questions?
I do have two. Number one, have you sent out the information sheet yet for parents to sign up for virtual or in school for middle and high school yet?
We have not yet. What we're waiting on for that is to finalize some of our discussions with the rapid response teams and our Rockwood Learning Council coming up next week, because we really want to make sure we're clear on what it looks like second quarter and what it looks like second semester. So we want to make sure we have a clear picture to provide parents of the virtual learning options.
The other one concerned, a parent I think tonight mentioned that with the way the system is at the high school now, they're cramming a whole semester into the first 9 weeks, and so they're doubling up on the information, but that's not really accurate because they're getting twice the amount of time for the class. Is that right?
The schedule is built so that there is twice the amount of minutes now.
Yeah.
With an online and sitting in place for the same amount of minutes that would be if we were in person with the schedule might differ. There's a little bit maybe more asynchronous learning that happens in conjunction with the synchronous time that they're there.
The other thing is that if we get to the end of the quarter, which I think is around October 31st or sometime in that range, a little bit after that, and you can't switch to another schedule yet, you have to do the other 3 or 4 classes you didn't take first quarter to get to the end of the semester. Then you have the flexibility to do what you want, all 7 classes at a time, or 3 and 4 again, right?
Correct. That's why second quarter might look a little different than the second semester.
Well, it'll be different classes.
Different classes, and again, we have the full schedule set to work with to provide more options.
First quarter is 4 classes to high school. Second quarter is 3 because you only take 7? Okay.
At the high school, at the middle school, we have 8.
Yeah, that's right. So at middle school works out fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, Clint.
Yep.
But they're still cramming a semester's worth of material in a quarter. It doesn't matter if you're spending a little bit more time a day on it. It's still the retention that they're having is not there. They're not absorbing what they're learning.
You're saying that if you're doubling the time, they're not going to retain it?
They're not retaining it. They're moving at such a fast pace that they're not retaining it.
Kelly, Dr. Willett, you want to say something?
There's a lot of research that we looked at before that. There are a lot of districts that run that 4 block, and a lot of districts like that, being able to focus on 4. And our whole purpose of going that way was that at the beginning of the year, none of those kids had any relationships built with any teachers. Last March, that wasn't the case. They all knew their teachers when we went out, and everything was fine. This year, they were starting a year with brand new instructors, brand new classes, not being here physically. So the 4 classes made a lot of sense. We've been able to keep track of kids and really work with them, because the other thing that we were up against is that they were not truly doing online learning last year. It was, let's get through the end of the year. They're starting with new content. We really had to use some of those online strategies, which does include more asynchronous learning for older kids that aren't used to that. And so the teachers have really been able to keep up with those kids, and they're seeing every teacher every day for 60 minutes. So there were a lot of advantages to doing that as well.
I was going to say that if the high schools were going 7 classes all in one day, I'm not sure they can handle it. I even struggle with the elementaries handling, a full day of classes, but that seems to be working well at K through 2, and I anticipate it will at 3 through 5. And so I agree with what you're doing. Now, the other part of that was people saying, well, if they're in an AP class and they have that AP class first quarter but don't have it in second quarter, they're not going to do well on the test. Well, that's not true, because they're going to have it again third quarter.
They will have it again, and our teachers are really looking at some nice review things. AP has put out a lot of information on that, because there are a lot of school districts that do this and do very well on the AP test, just like our kids do. So we're looking to a lot of those models and some of that review for those kids along the way. This is a typical schedule that a lot of school districts run around the country.
Thank you.
Know yet what the high schoolers are going to be doing with that 4th block in the second quarter semester?
Our teams are looking into options that we can provide for them right now. And so that's part of our discussion that will happen on Monday, is the options that we have to work with that, as you mentioned, that 8th hour technically for the high school, since they only have 7.
Well, the biggest challenges right now in our secondary, and I'm just going to talk about high school. I mean, it's fine. You can say 6 through 12, whatever. The biggest challenges, though, will be what?
Our biggest challenges right now are going to be with the scheduling with our in-person and our virtual. We want to ensure that we can provide our same number of courses and get to the same number of classes to each of our students that they're used to taking. And so we want to try and do that both this next coming up quarter and the next semester to the best of our ability.
So a student taking physics, say at Marquette High School, they actually may have a teacher from Eureka teaching physics if they're going virtual, or somebody else.
That's one of the options that we're looking at, yes, sir.
Yeah, we're looking at a lot of different options.
Okay, good.
I mean, you put a lot of, work into, your presentation, and, it's a lot more clear cut and open to what a lot of people have been craving for months to understand what's going on. And that's kind of what's preventing the schools from opening up, other grade levels sooner than later. I mean, we've had since April to get these protocols in place, and yet we're already approaching the end of the first quarter, and we only have, the health parameters have gone down a little bit more in a more positive light. We have people that are doing in-class and virtual. You guys are working out the kinks with the virtual, so the quality of education that they're getting is going to improve. But at the end of the day, there is still a large population of our community, students and parents alike, that want the kids back in school. So what is really preventing us sooner than later to open up those doors?
Yeah. So we're Again, we're continuing to work through to ensure that we have all those measures in place. We're giving time to look at our health indicators as we're bringing students back in. You know, we're looking at not just the county indicators, but county indicators by age as well in here. So we want to give time to let our elementary, that phase in happen, and we can ensure that our mitigation procedures are intact and working, and we have opportunities for our middle school and high school staff to learn the procedures that they're going to have. Even when you come back in person, the day-to-day teaching is different. The things you were used to doing as a teacher without the social distancing, without mask wearing, it's a different style, it's a different cadence to your routine, to how you interact. And that's going to take time to get used to and make sure that we're, again, examining our classroom, we have things in place. And so those are some of the things that we're looking at, as well as the schedule, because we want to make sure that we're trying to provide the best online and in-person opportunities we can. And you know, right now our schedule is kind of set. Our students are rolling through their courses right now, and to pull the students away from their current teachers and classes to try and provide a separate online teacher at the moment, it wouldn't be feasible in this short amount of time. So the time that we're using is to make sure that we're as prepared as possible, and that we're, again, maintaining our quality with providing opportunities for courses for students to take, and we're helping our students stay with the teams in middle school that they're also with.
So Glenn, I want to point out a couple other things that are going on, some of the finer details of things. So when we first started the school year, we decided to go all online. So yes, we had a lot of the mitigation strategies figured out because we had done those all summer, but the finer details weren't put on those because we then shifted to online and we really put all of our energies toward that. So at that time, it wouldn't have been good. It wouldn't have been a good use of our time to go around to classrooms and look at spacing and all those things. So from a curricular perspective, it's very different at the middle school and high school because we have so many specialized courses and specialized equipment. So my team, especially like the CTE teacher, the FACS teachers, all those people are going out in buildings now and looking at those spaces and trying to figure those out. When you've got 4 kitchens and you've got kids that are going to cook in them, it presents a totally different situation than a math classroom. So while we had all those mitigation strategies together and we knew what we needed to do, those walkthroughs and things didn't occur in the fall because we moved straight to online and put all of our energies there. We couldn't do both. So now we're going back and doing all those things, and the game has changed since then. So some of the things that we decided on over the summer have now changed, and we've gotten new details of how we should be doing these things. So we're having to go back and revise some of those things. So that's what's taking a little bit longer time.
I think also, I received emails about let's get the kids back in school, let's get them back in 5 days a week. Because Jefferson County is doing it, Franklin County is doing it, St. Charles County is doing it. But we've given our parents options for the virtual, and those districts haven't. They've said you will come to school, everybody 5 days. Or if not, what they're using is a hybrid schedule, which is 2 days a week for half the grade, A through K, and then L through Z, the other 2 days, so they're only getting 2 days a week. So I think we have the best option of all, which is the actual learning without having those parameters. The only thing better than what we're doing is full 5 day, and we're not prepared for that, and I don't think anybody in the county is prepared for that in larger districts. You may have a private school that may have 300 students that can go like that, but a district the size of Rockwood with 21,000 students, you just can't automatically click and say, yeah, we're going to do that. You have to have the plans, is what we're trying to get right now.
And it's moving pretty quickly. I mean, Glenn can tell you we're on a lot of meetings every day trying to get this stuff pulled together, so it's getting there.
Are we going to be ready to go 6 through 12 at the beginning of the second quarter? Or, I mean, because I'm afraid once we start the second quarter, the longer we go into virtual into the quarter, the harder it is to be back in the classroom.
And the work that we're doing is so that way we're flexible whenever, again, we recognize the health indicators are set and ready to go. As soon as we need to transition, we'll be ready to switch.
I would wonder about this use of space, because Keith talked about it's a lot of Marquette High Schools, a lot of kids, a lot of staff. I know there's 2,500 kids at Marquette. I don't know how many staff are there. 400? I don't know. It's a lot of people in that building. So how do you physically use that space and socially distance and have your mitigation strategies and again, and develop compliance with some of the things that we are requiring kids to do. So my hat's off to you all for working through this because it's a big challenge. So happy that we start with elementary so we can learn from elementary because what they're talking about doing, there's the hallway thing was very creative and it's working. So
Thank you.
Good job and thank you so much for leading the charge here.
Moving along.
2 more questions, sorry. Do we know anything yet about staffing 6 through 12 in terms of, how is that piece of the puzzle fitting into the rapid response teams and your ability to plan for which courses you can offer and how to offer them?
So that's, again, that group is looking at all of our options. Again, the options that we'll have are different second quarter than what they will be second semester. And so they're looking at those different options to ensure that we can provide as many courses and maintain those schedules as possible. And so they, again, meeting this next week to work with the Rockwood Learning Council to get their input and feedback so we can kind of set a path going forward.
So clear yet, like, I'm uncomfortable if kids come back and I'm a fax teacher, so I have to be...
You're asking about the staff and their choice of...
Yeah, just how does that piece of the puzzle fit into our planning? We can have all that planning in place, but...
Well, we don't really have an option. So if the staff member wants to exercise their leave option, that's the law of the land.
Right.
So we'll comply with that and we'll find a way to make it work. I can say that that was an area that we were concerned with K2 and teachers not returning, and we had very few, I think 3 total not return and exercise leave options. So that's the great news. It's more complicated at the secondary level because elementary certification is K through 5, so you can really teach any of those. You can't just teach physics or facts. You can't be that same teacher. So it is more complicated. But the word that we are encouraging staff to reach out to human resources if you have a concern that you can't come back because of a medical condition or a child care issue, reach out to human resources and we'll work with each individual on that individual basis and we'll do our best to find a solution with the staff member.
They obviously know these conversations are taking place, and this isn't a matter of if, but when. At some point our kids are coming back to the classroom. So, I'm sure it's in all of their minds, and hopefully we will see the same positive results in terms of having
We have
people
had
there.
several secondary staff members reach out to this point, but
Yeah.
you're right. I think at some point, knowing that it's on the horizon, that the plan for 6 through 12 isn't definitely finalized yet, but that we're working through these teams and it's coming. So we need to be mindful of that. And of course, if any staff member has a concern, they can reach out to human resources.
I saw the bus limitations for activities and athletics after school. Do we have those same limitations and spacing in place on our buses during the day, or no? I'm curious about the buses.
Can you speak to that one by chance about busing limitations during the day? Are there limitations on our bus to and from?
Capacity or...
Mike Kame has been working directly with the athletic directors to determine different bus capacity needs for each of the sporting activities, and at certain thresholds we'll send a second bus to transport a lot of that. And we're also tracking that too because there's some transportation funding that will help offset some of those additional costs. So Mike in transportation is working directly with each of the ADs on those.
Can you talk about during the school day on the way to school? Is there any limitations on number of passengers on the bus?
No, and that's been a discussion that we've had a lot with DESE as far as bus transportation. DESE understands that bus transportation and 6-foot social distancing is not practical. So from a bus capacity standpoint, right now at K-2, we don't have many riding the bus. 12 12 to 15 on a bus, so we are able to keep them 1 to seat or less than that. When we come back 3 to 5, it's going to be more of 1 to 2 children per seat. We're encouraging siblings to sit together. There'll be designed designated seating, so they sit in the same seat each and every day. They'll be wearing masks. The driver will be wearing face coverings as well. But as far as being able to maintain that 6-foot distancing, that's not possible on a bus, and that's why we're also encouraging parents to seek maybe carpooling, riding a bike, walking, whatever those options may be.
I know we're always looking for amazing bus drivers. How's that department staffed right now?
We started the year staffed very well. We've lost a few. Right now we're still okay. We could use some more subs, but at this point we're okay. It's something that we're watching very closely. We do have some folks that we can bring in that aren't regular drivers that do have the certification to drive from time to time. But to Carmen's point, where she's needing child nutrition workers, we could always use a few more bus drivers as well.
I was going to put a quick plug. Carmen did a great job today, and I do want to recognize the outstanding food service staff for their flexibility this summer and this school year. But we are always looking for child nutrition, bus drivers, substitute teachers, and adventure clubs. So come work for us. It's a great place to work. We've got jobs posted, but that's not just because of a pandemic. That's the nature of those positions.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Point 04, proposed agenda for the October 22nd Board of Education meeting in 2 weeks. Again, if anything added, let us know. Anything on there, Janet?
That's all of it.
Nope. All right, future agenda presentations, events to end, Google Calendar. I know Janet did send an email today about a possible board meeting next week. Please check your calendars. And unless there's anything else, going once, going twice. All right, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.